The sound cut through the diner like something sharp and unavoidable. It wasn't loud, but it carried a kind of truth that made everyone freeze. A small child's voice, steady and certain, said, "Daddy, please help her." For a split second, time stopped. Forks hovered in the air. Conversations died mid-sentence. And in a worn leather booth, a tired man who had learned how to stay invisible felt his heart wake up in a way it hadn't for years. He wasn't brave. He wasn't strong. He was just a father who had once promised his daughter she would never face the dark alone. And in that moment, that promise was being tested. Before this story goes any further, let me ask you something. Do you believe ordinary people can rise in extraordinary moments? Do you believe one small choice can change many lives? If you do, take 1 second right now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need this reminder today. This is Emotional Twist, and your support helps these stories reach the people who are silently searching for hope. Also, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Let's continue. Daniel Wright had mastered the art of not being noticed. 3.5 years earlier, cancer had taken his wife, and with her went the version of life he had once known. Since then, his world had shrunk into schedules, bills, and survival math. Nights were spent loading trucks at a warehouse until his hands went numb. Days were split with a part-time job at a community center, fixing broken chairs, cleaning floors, and doing whatever needed to be done because saying no wasn't an option anymore. Every dollar had an assignment before it ever reached his wallet. Rent, electricity, food, bus fare. There was never room for mistakes. The only thing that broke the routine was his daughter, Sophie. She was 7, curious, observant, and still believed her dad could fix anything. That night, he had taken her to the 24-hour diner on Route 9. It wasn't fancy, but Sophie loved it. The flickering neon sign, the vinyl booths, the chocolate chip pancakes that came with whipped cream shaped like a smiley face. Daniel watched her eat like it was the best meal in the world, and for a few minutes the pressure eased. Watching her smile reminded him why he kept going. That's when the trouble started. 2 men had been sitting in the corner booth for a long time. Empty glasses stacked near their elbows. Voices getting louder. Laughing in a way that made the air feel heavy. When a young server accidentally brushed their table while carrying plates, one of the men grabbed her arm. Not playful. Not accidental. Firm. Possessive. The other stood up, blocking her path, grinning like this was entertainment. The diner went quiet in the worst way. People stared at their phones. Some looked down at their food like it suddenly needed their full attention. The manager hesitated behind the counter, fear written all over his face. Everyone was waiting for someone else to act. Daniel saw everything. His stomach tightened. He knew exactly what was happening. He also knew what stepping in could cost him. He had no savings, no backup, no safety net. If this went wrong, he could lose his jobs. He could get hurt. He could leave Sophie alone in the world. His mind raced for reasons to stay seated, for excuses, for hope that someone bigger, stronger, more secure would stand up instead. He focused on Sophie's plate, cutting her pancakes into smaller pieces, trying to keep her eyes away from the scene. But then the server's voice cracked. Fear slipped through her words, and Sophie noticed. She slid out of the booth, tugged gently on Daniel's sleeve, and said the words that changed everything. "Daddy, please help her." There was no judgment in her voice, no hesitation, just trust. Absolute, unshakable trust. Something inside Daniel shifted. The fear didn't disappear, but it moved aside. In its place was the weight of being the man his daughter believed he was. The man he wanted her to remember. He stood up, slowly, heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. One of the men turned and shoved him hard in the chest. Laughter followed. Insults. A second shove. Daniel stumbled but didn't fall. What happened next wasn't clean or heroic. It was messy, fast, fueled by instinct. Daniel blocked a punch, grabbed the edge of a table for balance, and pushed forward. One man lost his footing and went down hard. The other lunged and slammed into the counter. Within seconds, it was over. Both men were on the ground, stunned and angry. The diner erupted in gasps. Daniel stepped back immediately. His hands were shaking. He wasn't proud. He wasn't relieved. He was terrified. The manager called the police. The server cried. Sophie stood silently, eyes wide, holding onto the side of the booth. When the police arrived, everything felt unreal. Questions, statements, cameras reviewed. Witnesses, the same ones who had stayed silent, finally spoke up. The footage told the truth. Daniel hadn't attacked. He had protected. He was free to go. But relief didn't come. That night, Daniel barely slept. His mind replayed every second. What if this followed him? What if his employers saw him as a risk? What if he had just destroyed the fragile balance keeping his family afloat? The next morning, he walked Sophie to the bus stop and held her a little longer than usual. At work, he waited for bad news. Just before lunch, his supervisor asked him to come to the main office. Daniel already knew what that meant. Inside the office sat a woman he had never seen before. Confident, calm, expensive suit. She stood and introduced herself as Victoria Chin, CEO of Meridian Hospitality Solutions, the company that owned the diner. Daniel braced himself. Instead, she thanked him. She told him she had reviewed everything personally. The footage, the statements, the context. She spoke about growing up in a place where people learned to look away to survive, about how rare it was to see someone stand up when it mattered, especially someone with so much to lose. Then she told him about the server. Her name was Amanda. She was 23, working 3 jobs, supporting her younger brother, trying to get through nursing school. That night had almost been the one that made her quit. Daniel had done more than stop an assault. He had stopped a future from collapsing. Victoria explained that the company was expanding a safety and guest relations program. They didn't need theory. They needed someone real, someone who understood fear, responsibility, and courage without pretending it was easy. She offered Daniel a job, nearly double his income, full benefits, daytime hours, stability. Daniel thought there had to be a mistake. There wasn't. That evening, he picked Sophie up early and took her back to the diner. This time, he didn't count his cash. Amanda saw them and smiled like she'd just seen family. She thanked him, told him she was staying in school, told him things felt possible again. Sophie beamed. Life changed quietly after that. Daniel worked hard, listened, built systems that protected people. Sophie saw her dad smile more, be home more, breathe easier. Nearly a year later, Daniel stood in a ballroom holding a microphone, listening as Victoria announced a scholarship in his name for children of single parents. Amanda's brother would be the first recipient. Daniel didn't feel like a hero. He felt grateful. As he walked out that night with Sophie's hand in his, she looked up and said, "Daddy, I'm glad you helped her." Daniel smiled, because sometimes courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it sounds like a small voice asking you to do the right thing. If the story moved you, let us know in the comments what part hit you the hardest. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Emotional Twist for more stories that remind us who we can be when it matters most.